Welcome to DailyCyber episode number 286. No matter where you are in the world, if you're in India or you're in Canada, you're in the US, welcome. I know I have a lot of people watching from different countries, so thank you so much. I want to just say that I've been watching some of the analytics and going through that. Today's going to be a really exciting episode. I've got Andrew Gault, who is the CEO of ZeroTier, where he's building the next generation of secure network infrastructure, software-defined resilience, and globally scalable. ZeroTier's platform connects millions of devices across 230 plus countries and territories, enabling businesses to create private networks as easily as spinning up a virtual machine. So it's going to be interesting to talk to him about that. As a founding partner of 7% Ventures, he's deployed over 70 million into 100 companies. Notable exits include First Money into Oculus VR, acquired by Facebook, and Magic Pony, acquired by Twitter. Andrew's mostly actively involved with portfolio companies and deal flow that are deeply technical, particularly in AI, video, and networking. Andrew currently serves as the executive chair at Plotbox, a PE-backed SaaS company within the death care industry. So really exciting. A lot of things that Andrew's got, a lot of experience. So grab a coffee, grab a tea, and let's hack at it. Good afternoon, Andrew. How's the things going? Give me 1 second here. There you go. I think your audio was just off. How you doing today?
Pretty good, thank you. Thank you for the excellent introduction there. It's been a while since I've heard all that.
Kind of a recap and refresher.
yeah.
Sometimes I've been on different podcasts and you're in there like, sorry, who are they talking about? That guy sounds amazing. And they're like, oh, it's you. And I'm like, I did all that?
Yeah.
When did I do that?
Well, we've all been at this a long time, right? A number of years. So.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So how's your week been so far?
Super busy as usual, but that makes it fun, right? It's better than being bored. So
100%.
Yeah.
So I know one of the things that I wanted to jump into, I know you guys are really experts in diving into quantum reality and quantum mechanics and computing. Tell me a little bit about that.
Wow, it's a big topic. So quantum computers, I think we're seeing a lot of headlines. It's pretty hard now to go a week without seeing something about a quantum computer coming closer. It's coming soon, and it's usually framed in this is very exciting. It will move humanity forwards, which it will, and it's it's a way of doing the math differently and much more efficiently. So I think in general, everything a computer can do now, the quantum computer, in theory, can do infinitely faster. It can do all the operations basically in parallel. There's obviously a large number of use cases for that, right? From science, math, rockets, take your pick, the positive vibes. But there's also, I would say, some negatives, wrong way of framing it. There are some ways that just will have to change the world, right? Especially talking about cybersecurity. If a quantum computer can render encryption, which 15% of the global economy depends on, if it can disrupt that encryption or change the relative risk rewards of it, that's a pretty dramatic change that's coming. Mm-hmm. So don't want to doom monger too much. It's not going to happen next year. But over the next, 5, 10, 15 years, pretty much a lot of fundamental assumptions that we make in, cybersecurity are going to have to be, I'd say, revisited, not changed, but revisited. And it frustrates me a little how I don't see headlines about this, right? You only see the headlines about the computers coming, but what then will be the impact on the world? Right. And I think there's some pretty obvious concrete impacts if we just kind of game it out in our minds.
Well, I think one of the things that I would like, it was a couple years ago when we were talking about quantum computers and you're talking about Google's using, and they're, you know, they have their own quantum computer and they're booking time for it. But if you want it, you can only get like an hour for tens of thousands of dollars. But then a friend of mine was saying, hey, you can get like a quantum computer from China and it's like $15,000. Right. And I'm like, hold on, like, what are we talking about? And I think we're probably going to be getting there in the next 5 years where it's going to be accessible to the general population, not in these massive organizations.
I think it might be right. It's so the problem with what you can buy now is there's so few qubits. So it is technically a quantum computer. It proves that it works, but there's so little almost kind of bandwidth in there that it can't really do much useful work. It cannot break encryption, right? It can. It can. It's not going to change our world. You buy that $15,000 thing. It's not like you can now crack Bitcoin and run off with Satoshi's, crypto hoard, right? That ain't going to happen. But
well, I'm going to say that I'm going to be devil's advocate right now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, because we don't. I mean, where we're going to be in 5 years can be completely different.
Exactly. The theory is proven.
Yeah.
And so what you just kind of look, well, we look at where they were 3 years ago, where they were 2 years ago, where they are a year, and we just cast that forward. And of course, technology always has that hockey stick, right? Progress gets faster. I think it was Bill Gates saying you underestimate what can be done in 10 years, but overestimate what can be done in a year, right? It's if we just cast forward that curve, it's definitely on the horizon when a computer might be around that can break these things. And it's not going to be you, me, or someone buying it off Alibaba. It's going to be nation states, right? To start with it.
Right.
And will the nation state announce that it has a working quantum computer and can break encryption? Probably not. But it's definitely, it should be being talked about, I guess. It's not an emergency, but if you think about transitioning infrastructure is a multi-year process. And if you look at the potential timelines, and I haven't really heard of anything closer than 3 to 5 years, but it can take 3 years to change my infrastructure in an enterprise, right? So that kind of means I better have been thinking about this at least now, ahead of that timeline, right? And maybe I should bring up, there is, if you deal in long-lived data, actually right now, because harvest now, decrypt later, I guess is the actual security issue right now. That's where you're probably a nation state. You've, say you're China and you've hacked some American telcos and you're just hoovering up all the data packets, bouncing backwards and forwards, and you're putting them on a server somewhere. I'm sitting them. And I know, and it's not like I think, I know, given time, I will be able to decrypt all these. I don't know if it's 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, maybe it's 15, but I can decrypt it. But if the data you are sending over the internet today needs to stay secure for more than 10 years, like you're a hospital or some highly regulated industry, that's already a problem. Right. And you better be thinking about what protocols you use to send that data, both over the internet and also at rest on your server today. Because again, it's not a if. I think at this point we know the theory works. Right. It's when, right?
Oh, 100%. I think that going back to what you're saying with nation states, I wouldn't be shocked. It's kind of funny. My wife says, like, she's always asking me about, like, okay, well, what about this? And what about threat actors? And what about nation states and all that? And I go, I'm at the point where in my career, it wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me if North Korea, China, whatever, someone came out and said, oh, they've had a quantum computer for the last 2 years and they've been doing nation state activities and they've been in the telecommunications and the banking industry and they've been extracting data for years and decrypting it. And now it's just coming public. I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
And ultimately when it happens, that will be how we find out, I think, right? I mean, as humans, we tend to procrastinate. I'm sure if you worked in a business environment, it's almost deliberate procrastination, right? Oh, I don't need to spend that money. I can hold the budget through next year. Right. And I always think back to the Y2K bug. And there we had a hard date. Like there's this literally to the second, we know when this will be an issue. And the vast majority of businesses procrastinated to like the last month or two, and it was a little bit chaos, right? Back then. Here, we don't have a hard date, right? So there's going to be a lot of procrastination. Like, I'll just give it another year. It can be the next guy's fault. And then we're going to find out about it. It's kind of too late. It's almost like the Y2K bug was announced in the news as the first thing you'd heard about it.
Right.
And whoops, I hadn't bothered to patch my system. I hadn't bothered to, update the software or update that router that I knew was an old one.
Right.
So yeah, I do. And that's partly why I loop back to why I worry about the lack of headlines, because I think everybody should be thinking about this and be more deliberate, because you don't have that forcing function of a deadline. Deadline's really useful.
Is it really? That's kind of a question. I think, people watching this ask. So is it really a threat today? Like, do I really need to be concerned? Does it need to be my planning, my budget, or do I just wait until some subject matter expert starts to drip the threat hunting that they found out some information and now I can start taking action?
I think it depends a lot on your industry and the use case of your data. Because right now, the harvest now, decrypt later is an active security threat. Yeah. And I think everyone listening to this instantly knows if that applies to them or not. If it doesn't, if it does apply to you, you gotta jump on this. If it doesn't, then I just worry about the timeline to do these things. So if you think, the recommended course of action, first of all, inventory the infrastructure, right? Which encryption protocols am I using? Most people don't just know that, right? What types of data, and which of my data sources do I not care about? Which of them will I care if it's cracked even 10 years from now? And then I'm going to plan what new infrastructure do I need. And hopefully it's not a complete tear out and replace. Hopefully it is in the order of a patch, a software patch. Right. But some legacy servers and routers probably will need to be torn out and replaced. And we all know, right? That's not a few months as a project. It's going to be a couple of years, right? Even if the whole organization's on board. And so I would just be very aware of that, because again, we don't know when the date comes. All we know, so the only kind of inference I think we have is, what does the government tell us? Right. So I think
I'm going to put that. I don't even know the government, because sometimes they're behind, right?
Well, I worry about other nation states.
Yeah,
right?
And I get that.
And so when the White House says, all new purchases of infrastructure in the US government must be quantum capable starting 1st of January 2027, why are they saying that, right? And again, we can probably infer quite a lot now that it implies that China doesn't have a computer right now, because otherwise they wouldn't say 2027, right? But they have a lot of people with a lot more information than you and me, running the risk scenarios. And, I just hope there's belt and braces and they're trying to get ahead of it. But they're saying 2027. NATO, I think it's 2030. By 2030, all, comms across all NATO countries and in the militaries must be quantum secure. Right. And I've heard from some of our customers and clients in that world that they're all thinking of en masse pulling it back to 2029, which says something right there, right? They've changed their minds over the last few years, and I think maybe we should do this a year earlier, right? It's like I think the speed of progress is accelerating, and it's surprising a lot of people, and you just don't want to get caught with your pants down, right? You do not want to see that headline on the New York Times and not have had thought about this.
Because you don't want to be the company that's on the New York Times, right? The one that's by the way, this organization, this CEO didn't get updated, and now they have a cyber attack, and they're going through breach notifications and things along that line for sure.
What I worry about as kind of a practitioner, someone who runs security organizations, is you're only as strong as the weakest link in the chain, right? It's like we all worry, it's very rare for a cyber incident to be someone came in the front door. They had a 0-day on your SSH server and they went straight to your billing server, logged in and ran off with all the credit card data. There was an old account on some legacy system no one really cared about anymore, which they managed to get into. And then they went sideways through the organization and through the infrastructure. And over weeks or months, worked their way over to the, the crown jewels and ran off with it. And I worry when I think about that in the context of quantum, it's like, okay, my web servers, I've got to have all the web servers on HTTP 3.0, TLS 1.3.
Mm-hmm.
I can't have it hybrid so that they can be negotiated down. I've got to enforce quantum. Great. But that's probably not how they're going to get in. It's
Right.
going to be, did you update the OpenSSH configuration on that server in the branch office that was used 3 years ago, but is still plugged in by, it's that the scope of inventoring your infrastructure and just, getting every weak link is,
Right.
I think that's where the challenge is.
Like as you know, like people processor technology, right? It's kind of one of the three areas you kind of look at, right? And then are you able to maintain and mature it as you're going through? Because I mean, sadly, I'm still seeing phishing campaigns, right, that are successful and people getting in where you're like, okay, you have endpoint protection, you have mail filtering, you have this. How are they getting in this way? And sometimes I'm seeing, like, over the last, I'd probably say month, downstream liability where it's a third party that's been compromised. So it's a valid email. It looks real. It's coming from the actual company, but that smaller company got compromised, and now the threat actors going from them, right? So it's not like, hey, they're coming from Gmail or Proton or something like that, or some email domain they just created. It's actually coming from a valid domain. So as you kind of go through and do your initial investigation, you're like, yeah, this is a partner that you work with. This is a company you have a relationship with. But then you see through the email, there's, you look at through the header and all that, but hold on, there's a link there that shouldn't be there. Then you pull the link out and you see it's going to somewhere it shouldn't be going. You're like, something happened here. And then you call the company, and sure enough, we've been compromised. Yeah, we're going through it right now.
I honestly, when I think in the context of AI, I think I saw someone on Twitter a few weeks ago. I'm not sure if it's real or they were just saying, but it's believable. My wife's phone number called me, and my wife's voice said to me, "I'm in trouble. Send me money."
Yeah,
and that is kind of horrifying, because I would hope I don't get phished, right? I would hope I'm savvy enough, but would I fall for that? Do I have secret code words with my wife? Do I text my wife every time she phones me and say, "Hey, is this really you?" And I think if I think about the technology behind that, I personally know how to have built that. Right? Which means a lot of other people do, and someone's using that and someone's doing that. And that, I know, it's kind of coming into the just don't trust anything. It's the plausible deniability on anything. Do something embarrassing on the internet. Well, hey, it was it was the AI.
Wasn't me.
Yeah, we got to verify anything. We've got to kind of default not trust. Which I guess is zero trust, right? It's a principle we all use in the cyberland. But in my experience, that's not humans. Most people default trust.
Oh yeah.
If you're the kind of human that default not trust, you probably don't have any friends, right? I think that, that's the weakness on the people part of your trifecta there.
Well, I think the two, and I had someone I was talking to a couple episodes ago, and they're talking about like the human element. Getting them into a stressful state, like the parasympathetic or sympathetic state, fight or freeze, right? Call you when you're having a busy day, and then say something to you that you're like, "What? Oh my God, your daughter's in the hospital, and this is happening. You got to get her right away." And then you kind of go, "What?" And you start to engage, not going, "Hold on, I just talked to her. She's at home. What's going on?" Like, you just kind of get involved in it, and you get lost in the sympathetic state, and the logic shuts down, and you start to emotionally react. Right? And I think that's the challenge when you see, I've gone through many engagements with threat actors and you see the pressure they put on customers. And you see what they go through, and you see like, "What, we got to pay now? Are they going to do this?" And you're like, whoa, slow down. You're not wrong, but we got to think about this. How's your backups? Can you restore? Can you do this? Like, do you need to pay that big ransom, or can we, retain the environment with what you have and be able to remediate? And are you good? And you start to do that, and they're like, but oh my God, they're calling my receptions. They're calling everyone. They're putting pressure on the whole team, the organization. They're going to call my clients. Like, yeah, that's the threat to get you in the state that you're going to pay. That's why they're doing that. And I think that's one of the tactics you're talking about, and especially when you look at the deep fakes, where now I've heard that scenario where I think it was in China, where they had someone come into the meeting. It was their face and their voice, and they were talking, right? Like, these things are happening, but it's like up to us to kind of go, yeah, hold on, let's verify this. Like, let's confirm, like trust but verify, like everything now.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, we've had people apply for jobs and try and get on the job interview, and like, oh, on the second pass, like, wait, this is not a real person, right? Wow. And it's like we haven't had anyone get to like a Zoom like first interview. I don't think. I hope not. But it's definitely got, you know, one or two steps down the pipeline of, you know, hang on a minute, just reviewing this. That I don't think that's a real person. That doesn't add up. And it's technology makes it so cheap now, right? I think we as a society relied so much on friction and the time suck of doing these kind of scams, right? I mean, the classic, we get a lot around here. Both my wife and a friend's wife have been hit with, hi, this is the police phoning. You didn't show up for jury duty. You all fine. Oh, can you just Venmo some money? And of course, nothing's happened from it. But that was a real person on the end of the line, right? There's a limit to the number of scam calls they can make and how many succeed to make it worth their time. That's why we don't all get 20 a day, right? But
as you know, and some people don't know this, there's call centers. Like they like overseas, some people don't know this. There's actually a business. There's an actual office with phones and computers, and they're sitting down and they go to work and they have their call script and they do that, and they have the robodialer goes and just the phone starts going and they go through their scripts. Like when I first got into cybersecurity, I was kind of like, oh, but you know, the typical hooded guy in the basement and a dark keyboard trying to hack your computers. But as you start to go into it and kind of go, no, there's companies, there's actually businesses that this is what they're doing overseas. And there's support and there's this, there's that. It's like, okay, so now you kind of look at the models. Like even when I was looking at threat actors, like there's a ransomware as a service. Like you can literally go, hey, I want a ransomware company X, Y, and Z. Can you support me through it? Yeah, this is the package. This is the payload. This is how you do it. If you run any problems, send us a message. We'll walk you through it. How did the payment transfer? How to do this? How to exfiltrate the data? They walk you through everything.
Yeah, I think it's, we all have this, like you say, somebody in the basement with the hoodie on, the elite hacker spelled with, 2 3s, which is just targeted you and got in. And the threat actor is not particularly emotional about this. They're doing what they're doing as it always goes back to the quantum and nation states, is where this is going to come from at first. It's not, it's not some loner in the basement that is recording all your internet traffic to decrypt in 10 years, right? These are professional operations, and you're probably not specifically targeted, right? It's like if you get hacked, it's because something was open, but they were just scanning to see what they could find. It's which I hope should make it less emotional, right? When someone calls you off the stairs and gets you in that state, it's like treat it like a business deal.
Right.
No, wait, take a breath. Do I like this contract? Let me go and ask my associate for a review of the contract. That should be the mental model used. And, we've all been in some kind of business deal where the other side's desperate to get the invoice in, and it's calling you 4 times in a day. It's like, does that make you like sign the contract without reading the contract? It's like, no, it's just, it's just a data point. So obviously hard at the moment to think like that, but that's how we should treat them for sure.
It's totally reality. Now, one thing I wanted to ask you, kind of going back to the cybersecurity side, like what specific components of today's security stack would quantum computer realistically break first? So I know we kind of talked theoretically, nation states having it, but what do we have to be concerned about like right now?
Key exchange. Okay. So quite simple. So the asymmetric encryption. So the symmetric encryption, AES 256, or any of the ones that both sides, the secret key, in general, they are quantum secure. The ones that we've been using for 10 plus 20 years, they're quantum secure. Don't really have to worry about them. The problem is, how do I tell you the key that we should be using? We're going to use some form of public key cryptography, some kind of asymmetric cryptography. And the classic RSA algorithms are, in theory, breakable with quantum algorithm called Shor's algorithm. And so the good news is there are quantum safe ways of doing this. MLChem, NIST, FIPS 203. There's a few now compliant standardized ways of doing it. So it's that initial key exchange that is what's important. So when I think of all our infrastructure, I think mostly about identity. So it's less the actual bits on the wire. It's if the identity gets broken, that someone else can read what the bits on the wire were.
Okay.
For example, Zero Trust. We probably all familiar with Zero Trust. We all use that. It's, to my mind, a kind of architectural framework of, everything is isolated. We don't trust every connection we test. But what's the basis of it all? Identity, the IDP. Who is this? What's the certificate? Is it signed correctly? Are they proving who they are when you come to, the log onto the VPN or connect to the SaaS web server? And if the breach is if that identity can no longer be trusted, kind of the whole stack then starts, tumbling like dominoes, right? It's it's that identity piece and that the public key exchange. Most protocols and algorithms we use at this point, and I would say most servers or software packages, do have some kind of quantum secure way of doing that.
Okay.
You might say PQC, post quantum cryptography, QR, quantum resistant, and kind of acronyms you see. They're usually there. They're usually not on by default today. Right. You might have to download something. You might have to go to your vendor, right? Maybe your vendor's a little bit behind. But I'm obviously a bit more in this space, and over the last year, every couple of months, I see an announcement from a vendor. Oh, we've now released such and such.
Right.
I think what you have to worry about, of course, is the hybrid cryptography. So a lot of protocols will negotiate on both sides. Who do we understand? I mentioned HTTP 3 and TLS 1.3 there. It's always dangerous, right? In cryptography, we're always a little worried about when both sides can negotiate, because that's frequently an easy way to trick the other side into using some older, broken level of encryption. So yeah, I'd say that's useful because you can't update everything overnight, but just be very cognizant of, one, enabling it on the server end, two, how much, probably you'll start with some kind of hybrid key sharing. What percentage of my end devices or users are using that, and when do I switch off the hybridness, right, and enforce the quantum secure algorithms?
So I think you'd have to be very mindful too, because the handshake has to be equal, I would assume, because you don't want to have an older technology synchronizing or authenticating.
Both sides, both sides need to be quantum aware, and both sides need to be patched.
Well, that's it. And then my hypothesis right now is that, if you're doing it in your internal environment, you're working in your infrastructure, that makes sense. But if I'm working with customers, trying to give them the public, PKI certificate, and they're not, now I have an issue, and now I have to wait till they update to a certain baseline. Yeah.
Which gets back to the process point, right? It's like, I think, and again, it's very easy and tempting to start doom mongering, and I don't want to, right? I think the technology solution is there. And at this point, it really is in the order of a patch, or, it's for anything, more recent hardware, right? If you're still running some 10-year-old router, okay, maybe it's time to upgrade it anyway, right? But it's very much a process problem. And that's why I worry that it is years, right? You can install a patch in 5 minutes, but I've got to get it on every device. I've got to make sure I didn't miss every device. I've got to get it on all my clients. I've got to go now negotiate with the vendor, and the sales guy's going to get in line and try and charge me more for it. And I think it's very obvious to me with some, real world business experience, this is a multi-year endeavor, right? It's, so even if there was a hard date, January 1st, 2029, we know the quantum computer will arrive. Well, that's less than 3 years away. I would already be worried if I was a CEO sitting right now, like, oh shit, I got to do an inventory and budget this year to buy stuff in 2027 to start deploying, so that 2028 is the rounding up what was missed and the auditing stage, so that I'm good for that 2029 date. So So,
Well,
the
other
time is
thing too
now.
is like you're going to have to look at a progressive model of building out the infrastructure on
Mm-hmm.
top of, and I want to jump into the infrastructure, so that's a good point. But I think you'd have to a model of a hybrid approach, because you'd have to work with more instant software technology because your customers, whatever. If you were just on your own and doing that, that's fine. Upgrade your own environment. But if you have relationships that you have to wait for, you're going to have a hybrid model that you can do both.
Yeah, it's really painful, right? It's like any kind of upgrade of software is complex, but when there's dependencies between some networking software and you're trying to update it and you don't want to just take it down for a day, it gets very hard. And to your point, if we're all talking across multiple companies, it's not like the whole economy can decide just to go offline for an hour while we all patch. I mean, I guess in theory we could, but in practice it ain't ever going to happen. So hence the need for the initially hybrid security kind of deployments, enabling it as in many devices, having things auto-negotiate up, tracking that. Just the process.
Now through that, like I mean, kind of bring into the infrastructure conversation, is it a mixture balance of hardware, software, a hybrid of both? Like, what are we looking at that needs to be upgraded through the infrastructure deployment and going from their current model to a quantum environment?
Great question. It depends a lot, I think, on the vendor and the vendor relationship. So if you think, for example, if you have a recent Palo Alto network equipment, you can probably, or I'm pretty sure you can just upgrade, your OS there, and you will have quantum there to enable. If you're using, 10-year-old equipment, or maybe even 3-year-old equipment, right? And does the vendor want to give you, is that a patch? Is that a security patch they need to give you? Or feels to me a little bit more like a new feature.
Right.
Does your agreement give you a new feature? Do you get upgrades? How does a lot of networking vendors, I think of, especially the old, the big gorillas, they're box shifters. They sell you a lump of metal in a cardboard box, right? That's mostly how they make their money. The incentive on their side is to sell you another fresh lump of metal in a cardboard box. The incentive is not really there to go back with, software updates. And will they? Won't they? I think I'm frankly not very sure. On the software side, like I say, it's a software update. It really is just use a different encryption algorithm and known published algorithms. It's not.
Could it
we're
be
not in the science.
version?
Yes, like a later version or a patch. It's not the forefront of science to which encryption algorithm should be used. It's just, I've got to change a configuration parameter. I want to stop using RSA. I want to start using MLCAM. Or I'm not a cryptographer. There's someone on my team who is. You could now list 50 different algorithms you could switch to. But in general, how would I say this? OpenSSL, which is probably the most common way software uses encryption, right? Never write your own encryption. Go get the standard one. It supports, hundreds of algorithms. It supports quantum safe algorithms, right? So it really is. It's a configuration and an update problem more than a go off and start furiously writing code problem.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think what you're bringing up, and I mean, kind of want to solidify for some people watching this, they have to know their infrastructure, their stack, their software stack, their technology stack, because like you said, it could be just a patch management thing where, you have to patch now there's a quantum patch. You put on your current software, appliance, whatever that may be. Bob's your uncle, you're good. Now over a weekend, you're up and going again. I'm wondering and understand the IT environment and what happens if it's not a full switch out the environment, switches, routers, firewalls, things along that line, because it's not, doesn't have the capability to be upgraded. So now, like you said, now you have to have version 3 or quantum version of firewall appliance, whatever that may be, right? Then you're looking at also look at the software. Some of the software applications, unless it's kind of mainstream, I'll use Office 365. Mainstream application kind of has a big name. Patches, you get versions and you kind of go through it and you update. But if you're having customized applications, ERP, things like that, it might be a complete new version. Now you have to look at, on top of the version of Quantum, is there anything else that you need to look at migration?
So we've all looked, I mean, we've all worked with these businesses, right? Where some consultant wrote some custom thing, you know, the classic example is written in COBOL and no one wants to touch it and it's been there for 20 years, but it works. And how do you patch that, right? How do you update that? You know, where is it running? Can I harden the operating system environment around that application, and maybe put something like an overlay network on the network stack, so that application is running within an environment, doesn't need patch, right? I've just done it. I've fully wrapped it in updated systems. Or, you know, again, we're all aware, we've seen that, but that's not the case, right? What the consultants delivered 20 years ago wasn't code. What they delivered was a server, right? And you know, some server, some prehistoric, maybe not even on Linux, right? Some prehistoric version of Unix running in a closet somewhere. We still come across those occasionally, right? We're all shocked. It's like, how do you patch that, right? Well, you know, I hope you can get on and maybe you can do the overlay network trick and kind of harden around it. But yeah, you got to know. The first thing is just knowing, right? Inventory. What do you have? What budget do I need? Because it's not going to be free, and it's probably not going to be cheap. So, you know, it's probably a material enough impact on your budget as a CIO that the CEO is going to be involved, right? And the CFO is involved. So, you know, we know that never goes well if there's only a few weeks warning. That goes well when there's a 1 year's warning, right? You know, we're doing inventory now, heads up. You know, when we're in budget season and come on, you know, November this year, then there might be some big impacts coming. You know, I want to forewarn you. Again, try and get 3 years ahead of this, right? You don't want that to be a surprise bill, right?
Well, of course not.
So, yeah.
And I think that's your point. I think to add on to that, if you're looking at it, you have your ears to the ground, you know, people are watching this, you should look at what's your critical systems, what critical systems will need to be upgraded first, kind of go in a phased approach, because large organizations down are not going to be able to spend millions of dollars to upgrade the whole infrastructure. But if you do in a phased approach, quarter one, year one, you do these systems, then next systems, and then next systems, you kind of build off of that. Then by, like you said, 2029, you're there. But if you're like some companies we've talked about, if it's December 2029 and you want to start upgrading because the government's saying you need to do it, it might be a little bit too late, and you might have a couple of years now to plan that out. Yeah,
and that's what I mean. There are a lot of companies. There's a very long tail, right? And earlier in my career, I did consulting for much smaller businesses, and these businesses are sorry, but they're not watching this podcast, right? They don't even know what the CISO stands for, right? Right. And they bought it works. You know, it's just I'm not an IT shop. Why would I even think about it? And I worry that they will find out about it when there's the headline in the Wall Street Journal. And once you add up all those small businesses, it could be pretty meaningful, right, to the economy, especially globally. So yeah, I do worry about it. But I think back to your point there, what to do first. Obviously, there's the crown jewels, right? There's payments, banks, you know, all that stuff. Obviously, you want that to be secure. I would come back if I think it's just generic infrastructure, identity. It's like the basis of basically all the modern ways of doing infrastructure security is identity. If you can't trust who someone says they are, it kind of all falls apart after that point, right? What's the point if the network was quantum secure, but you could spoof being me over that thing? It's right. It's just it was completely pointless. Right. I think I would definitely start at the identity layer and then kind of work out from there. And kind of again, zero trust, you're probably segmenting your network and your infrastructure. Then it's like, you know, okay, which segments are the crown jewels in? How can I micro segment further? How can I, you know, and then move horizontally through my infrastructure?
Yeah, and I think that was going to be my next question too. You start kind of jumping into like, for 2026, I mean, you talk to a lot of organizations, like what should be the CISO's playbook right now, especially around quantum computer?
Well, I did kind of jump there. I mean, I could maybe step back to a more generic answer. I think, I mean, I'm seeing things like zero trust, like everyone does it. Again, I think it's kind of the expected way to do it, but you meet a lot of, not even just long tail, like, companies that are not doing that. They're still in some kind of old school perimeter security VPN kind of setup. The classic old school cybersecurity, right?
Yeah.
It's once you're on campus, if you plug into any Ethernet port, you can access anything. And the security layer is the door, to get into the building. And the old school VPN was designed to be like almost like a portal into on campus, right? And it's like, if you can get a VPN, you can access anything. And the moat, the castle, the moat.
Yeah.
And I mean, if it works, obviously, but we all learned you're only secure as the weakest link. And it's basically impossible to guarantee that little server no one cares about in the branch office is fully patched. And if it's in the campus network on a VPN, well, that's the way they're going to get in. And once they're in, poof, you're gone.
Right.
So I think I would say, when was it? When did Zero Trust show up? Was it 2013, 2015, that kind of era?
I think it was around 2013, I think.
Yeah, that's when it started being talked about. And I think it's definitely, I would say, best practice. If you're not there yet, you should be. What if there was no moat? What if thought experiment, don't do it. What if thought experiment, every server and device in my organization was on the public internet? How would I deal with security? And then I would have to not trust every single connection that hit every single device or server. Where's it coming from? Who is it? Have I seen this before? It's and that's why I describe Zero Trust as like it's a mindset, like a framework, an architecture framework, more than a thing you buy. It's even within systems, right? We talk about, our billing servers. Well, there's probably a front end server, a database server, maybe the load balancer. It's actually 3 or 4 servers. Mm-hmm. They shouldn't implicitly trust each other, right? They should where's this connection coming from? Who are they? What is their identity? And so when you're working in that mindset, and you should probably still have some form of perimeter, right? Belt and braces. Once you're working in that mindset, it stops the lateral movement. So, they got into that crappy old server in the branch office, but the billing server just doesn't trust anyone, including that crappy old server. So, hey, doesn't matter. I mean, it matters, but it's not as big an issue.
Right.
But everything I've just described, its kind of core basis is identity. Who are you? And we do that with encryption and certificates, right?
Right.
And if you think about it, a certificate, HTTPS certificate, any of these certificates we would use in Zero Trust, they're all public key asymmetric encryption based. That's what they really are under the hood.
Right.
There's a public key. You have a public key. The certificate authority has the private key. So you use their public key to say, this is who I am. You send it out and, do the dance. Really, it's just public cryptography. Right. So it's that identity piece that I think is the source then for Zero Trust to keep working, right?
Interesting. Okay. Anything else you'd add other than encryption, especially when you're looking at quantum computers? I know you talked about encryption, cryptography, Zero Trust. Was there anything you'd say that the CISO should be looking at?
That's a good question. I mean, if I try to step out of cryptography, I think, some algorithms go faster, right? I think I don't know how much it impacts the CISO, but I think with Bitcoin, your problem is the signature and kind of basically, again, identity. The proof of work can be sped up, but I think it's not like, boom, it's instantly broken. The basis of proof of work in all these crypto protocols, I think it speeds up by order 10x or something. Right. But it's but I feel, I guess we centered in the conversation more about the downsides of quantum computers. I think there are a lot of upsides, right? If compute gets cheaper and faster, what does that do for your organization and your business, right? I haven't read much yet on LLMs and quantum, and how they can be sped up. Obviously, I'm sure we're all talking and thinking very hard about LLMs and, their ability to automate drudge work, and how I don't buy that, we're all going to be unemployed. I do buy that everyone is going to step up. They're going to be a manager. They're going to be the orchestrator. They're going to, as I said to one of my engineers the other day, when was the last time you were punching holes in a paper card? Okay, do you miss punching holes in the paper card? Okay, right now when you write code, really you're just punching holes in the paper card. Would you not rather be managing a team of agents, orchestrating them writing the code? I don't really think it's that different. What happened? I mean, obviously they're enormously expensive. You see, OpenAI raising, was it $300 billion last week? I might have that number wrong. It's an astronomical number.
Right.
What does quantum do to that? And then, the speculation, right? I kind of buy that we're all a form of LLM walking around, but how do we all run in 20 watts, not gigawatts? Well, are we all some form of quantum computer?
Right.
I don't know. I don't know. But it's, I'm the wrong expert. Next guest on the podcast. Yeah. But I think it's very exciting for organizations, right? And the benefits. The benefits will outweigh by 1,000x the costs and the headache of infrastructure and all those cost centers.
I think that it's going to be, I was talking about AI, quantum computers. I think it's going to be a disruptor. Like, in my opinion, you have people that are growth, individuals in the organization. They want to move up. They want to move to the next position. But then you have people in organizations that are kind of fixed in their position. They're that security analyst, they're that security engineer, they're that IT, person, they're that, help desk, whatever that may be. And they're kind of stuck in that position. Those ones I think are going to get disrupted, right? If they don't keep growing, keep developing.
Absolutely. It's, when the car showed up, the economy exploded, right? Industrial revolution, economy exploded. There were a lot more work to go around. But if you were, gainfully employed as a cobbler, putting shoes on horses or making, buggy carriages, there was a lot of disruption, right? And you're right. I think someone like myself thrives on learning more and just trying to expand my world and go up. I know a lot of people and have many friends that are quite happy where they are, right? They would like to focus on something else, and there will be disruption. Again, I will say, I don't buy that we're all going to be destitute and the world's going to turn to Mad Max.
Right.
But I do buy that there's going to be 10 to 20 years of disruption, right? Industrial revolution, yeah, there was a good solid, everything changed. The car showed up. Yeah, that really changed the world. And maybe it would have sucked if you just got out of college to be making carriage wheels or something right when that happened. You're going to have to go retrain and kind of go back into that. I think we're all, as children, expand our world kind of mindset. And you're going to have to go back into that mode. And 100%, we are entering a period like that. I'm lucky my children are still young, 10, 20 years before they're entering the workforce. If my child, or you're listening and you're like literally graduating from college right now, that's going to be tougher than for some of us. But it's, just go back to the learning mode, roll with it. It's,
well, I think to your point, I think though, one thing that I've mentored people is that if you're coming into in this industry, IT security, whatever it may be, you have to have the mentality you're going to be a student for life. Like, that's really it. You can't come in thinking I'm going to master this skill in year 2, year 3, and then I'm done. Like, that's all I'm going to do. And I'm going to coast to my career of my retirement. No one that I've known has been able to do that. Cause like you said, COBOL, old application, the old data centers, all are starting to be migrated and moved, and new technology and new solutions that you have to develop. I remember like when I was in school, and it was like the old Windows server, I think was like version 3. You're like, oh yeah, the version 3 and these are the servers and all that. And you're like, the GUI was really terrible in this. And all of a sudden you had, 95 and version this, and then you started to go and you're like, oh, and you just had to keep learning. And then I remember my instructor saying, you got to understand, you're going to, what you learn here at school, you're going to now have to relearn as soon as you get out in the industry. Yeah. Well, like that sucks. Like, what am I paying for? But then you realize when you get in, they're like, oh, we're on this version, you learn that, but now
Yeah.
we're this version, we're that version, and you just keep going.
And anyone successful in our industry is innately wired like that, right? They're always learning.
Yeah.
And I honestly, frankly, I select for it, right? If I'm hiring someone and I have two people that I think are equally skilled, and one of them, you know, left school at 18 and self-taught everything, and the other one has a master's degree from Stanford, but they're equally skilled. Well, I know who I'm hiring, and it's not the person who spent a lot of money at Stanford, right?
Right.
It's because that ability to have self-taught, to have solved the problem, to have read up, to keep going, it's kind of innately what's necessary to have a very productive career, I think, in technology.
Yeah.
But a lot of people are not in technology, right? If you know, you want to be a bookkeeper or, you know, some other
I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Yeah.
All that now is technology. Like I was talking to a bookkeeper last week, and you got QuickBooks Online, you got it's SaaS based, and now like everything started. Like I know the QuickBooks Online is now incorporating AI into it, so now they can review your books. So like it's taking those steps where maybe your bookkeeper at one point it's not going to be needed because AI is going to be now evaluating all your books, right?
I think I read a statistic recently. When the spreadsheet showed up, the number of bookkeepers in the world like collapsed, you know, 100-fold, but the number of accountants in the world soared, right? And it's again, that's my point. We all just go up the stack. We all go up to the higher value, whatever it is in the stack, and it's different. It's different, I guess. Is it a fundamentally different industry or a different role? It's maybe being an accountant is harder than being a good bookkeeper. I don't actually know. I'm not either. Right. But one assumes you need more intellectual curiosity to learn more about, you know, why. If you know, you maybe, you know, back in the day, you could be very good at punching holes in the cards to feed into the computer, and you were the world's best hole puncher, and you never once thought about why you're punching holes in the card. Right. Well, then you were screwed. But I don't really buy most people like that. Most people are like, why am I punching a hole in this card? There's some intellectual curiosity in there, right?
Oh, 100%. I just think right now with the new technologies, AI stuff, like I think there's going to be disrupting. Like I'm seeing, like for myself, graphic design, video editing, and video creation. Like the guys that used to be very creative creating that, now you can put a prompt in to any of the tools now, and now start creating videos, start creating content, start creating images. So you kind of look at the ones that used to do that and be very creative using Adobe Illustrator and all that. Now it's kind of like, well, you don't really need that anymore, because I can go to a design AI tool and say, create me a prompt for this, and the background, the design, the colors, this, that, and here's my brand, you know, all my hex, you know, for my brand code. Here you go. And all of a sudden it punches out the images for you. And you're like, I'm done. Great. Thanks.
I think it gets to what is the value of the graphic designer? Is there, when I go to a graphic designer and I want a poster, is it their ability to draw good art? Or is it their ability to listen to me and realize what I'm saying? Right. I think we were all by default, we say, oh, they have a good eye. They're good at drawing. Right. And when I've used these tools, I'm like, oh, here's a funny idea for my friend's group chat or whatever it is. And I pound it in, and it comes back like, oh, no, that's slightly wrong. No, make it bigger. Oh, no, that was wrong. And what I'm fighting with is the AI getting the requirements out of my brain into it. And I 100% believe a graphic designer, the value, it turns out the value there was in listening to you describe it and then knowing what to draw, not the actual drawing. Right. But if you looked at how they spent their time, they probably spent, you know, an hour at you at the beginning of the project and then spent 2 weeks doing the actual design. And well, all the actual design that can be automated away. But the real key value was the 1 hour they spent on the phone with you, knowing what to do. Right. And so that's why we'll still hire graphic designers, because if it's some random, you know, funny picture for a group chat with some friends, I don't care too much. But if it's my business logo, I care that what's produced looks good. And it's actually kind of really annoying and hard to do. And I think that same concept then goes to, like, say, a software developer or you know, a network engineer or someone. It's what's the value of your work as a network engineer the clicking through all the firewall roles, configuring them, or was the value in reviewing, the infrastructure, thinking through the risks, and deciding which firewall roles I had to configure? And I think right now that you probably spend more of your time doing the judge work. That's all. It's going to be automated. I mean, it's pretty obvious at this point.
Right.
But do I buy that in one prompt I can trust an LLM to have looked holistically across the organization, have overheard all the water cooler chat, and just have the context to know what firewall rules to make? No, I'm still going to hire the network engineer to do that prompting.
Maybe like let's use like Palo Alto, Fortinet, and all that. If they're training their LLM by all their customers and the configuration, the hardening, and all that, and they're training their whole LLM to now how to configure, you have a broad audience of knowledge base of hardware configuration for security that now I come in net new, company ABC, and say, hey, I need it configured. They have 500 companies, 5,000 companies that's trained the LLM how to configure the firewall properly. I think that's where you're going to start to see over years that.
Yeah, but I would be devil's advocate there. I think really when you look at those configurations, the complexity is in the exception. It's actually the standard is easy. And I mean, it might not be easy to configure, but knowing what to do is easy. And I think that absolutely is going to be automated. Palo Alto, yeah, I've seen, 5 million firewalls. This is the threats we've all seen. Boom, here's your standard one. But then we all have that one random firewall exception. Starts as one, right? We got a consultant in so-and-so, and they're using their own laptop, even though that's not company policy, but the CEO says it's good because it's a rush. And then, you get the one little exception in, right? And then here comes another little exception. And that's the complexity usually in security of what we do. And that doing that correctly and safely, it's what I'm getting. It requires a more holistic, what are we trying to do here across the organization viewpoint, which the Palo Alto LLM simply doesn't have the data. I mean, maybe if it had perfect data, yes, it could also do that. Will it have perfect data? Would I give it all the data of my organization, even if, I'm not sure it would. Right.
Or would it learn, right? And that's hence the LLM.
Exactly.
Right. Would you teach it that, okay, for my company, you gave me the baseline. I'm an education company. Here's my baseline because you got the fundamental of all education and universities. Here's the configuration. Now I'm going to teach you, I need these exceptions. And now it goes that level more, it consumes into its profile and memory that your university ABC, you have all the configuration of the baseline, but you put these exceptions. Now we know your portfolio. So when we're scanning your environment, we know those exceptions need to be live. But also when we see an open port over here that shouldn't be, now you get alerts, and kind of do that.
But it's things like, say we do that use case, right? We got the random consultant on their own laptop. It's it's a 5-month project, whatever. And okay, they're done. They go off. When does the exception go away? If you're a Palo Alto LLM, if something breaks down in the process, how would you know? Right. It depends obviously on the size of your organization, but we'd hope the network engineer has more holistic context. They might know that we're not getting invoices anymore from that consultant. Or I had lunch with so-and-so. He says, well, that was a useless consultant. We fired them 2 months ago, right? It's like, then I know to look back. And that, I don't think that's particularly hard context. If you let the Palo Alto LLM scan your billing data and scan your emails, it could also learn that and know to remove the exception or flag it. But I don't think you're going to let the Palo Alto LLM read all the emails in the organization. So you need that human layer still in there, right?
But it could be, and this is where I'm seeing on my side, is it could be tied into OpenAI and other tools that have its hooks into the other applications. It's not just Palo Alto's living on its own AI. It's connected to OpenAI, which then is part of your email system, your accounts payable, accounts receivable, your Active Directory, like everything, right? Your HR platform. So it can pull triggers that, this person X is no longer, and it goes through.
Well, the business operating system AI that's hooked into absolutely everything. We're not there yet. Will that come? I think there'll be a lot more tools than that. It's an obvious use case for that. I think it's mainly technical people use it right now because we get it. We want to learn about it, and it's really good at coding, right? It's good at what we do. Does the average accounts payable person in the business use Claude Code? No, but I'm sure it'd be super useful if you did.
Right.
So I think it's those other kind of departments and the kind of industries where it's going to be an explosion of AI use, absolutely. And then how far up the stack does it go, right? Is it just a board of directors talking to an AI? Am I as a CEO out of work? I don't know.
And then what I would like to do is let's in a year, let's catch up, let's kind of review this and see where we're at, right? Because we might be having the conversation that, it's just us because now AI is taking over this application, they're actually configuring that. Or it could be, a couple years out. I like to see where it is because I know from the exposure that I'm getting to AI and LM and agentic AI, seeing how it's evolving into these software and solutions and technology, and how a lot of the mainstream ones are incorporating it, from Teams to Zoom to any type of EDR solution. They're all starting to bring in some sort of version of AI into it, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. It's certainly only just the beginning.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Now, we're almost done here, Andrew. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, I think thank you very much for having me. I think quantum is something we should all think about more. I think that's what I'd love you to take away from everyone. It's framed in the news as years away, but if your data is needs to be secure for the next 10 years is a problem right now. You got to start thinking about it now, updating your infrastructure. And I guess if you want to learn more about me and ZeroTier, you popped it up there, go to ZeroTier.com. We're a secure overlay network and basically a virtual network you can layer over the top of your physical network, which makes zero trust and a lot of the stuff we talked about right now considerably easier because there's no more weak link in the chain. You've just kind of laid over the top of the chain with a very secure platform.
Awesome. Now, easiest way to get a hold of you is through LinkedIn?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So what I put is everyone there. If you guys want to reach out to Andrew through LinkedIn, just kind of connect with them. I'm sure Andrew would love to answer any of your questions you have, kind of go through it. Thank you so much, Andrew. This was great. I've learned a lot and it was a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much. Look forward to the next time.
Yeah, same here. Well, that was an awesome conversation. I think Andrew's been very informed, especially when you look at quantum computers, you look at, the threat landscape and what's going on with organizations. I think it's really insightful to educate organizations, leaders, subject matter experts right now to really dive deep into this topic, understand it, understand how it impacts yourself and your education, your learning, and your career, understand how it affects your role in your business, in your organization, and look out planning out where do you need to be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years and slowly start to integrate those technologies and solutions, right? Because I say for myself being a VC, so I'd rather progressively build the infrastructure now over time and distance and test it and validate it versus having this stopgap that I need to get in within 60 days, 6 months, 1 year and have a rush and sprint and something goes wrong. Something doesn't go, right. It's not working correctly with the business. And we have problems with business continuity because we're not able to connect with our clients or customers, things like that. If you do it now and do it in a slow, methodical process, I think it's going to help you grow that out and be ready when the time comes when there's the need for quantum computers. You're gonna be like, yeah, I'm good. I have all my systems, all my processes are in place. I'm ready to go. Especially when we're looking at Fortune 100, Fortune 500, large organization, mid-tier, kind of smaller. The smaller and mid-size and the kind of large organizations, better to do the research now and slowly build it out while you have the budget and kind of slowly do that versus trying to do it and you have to spend tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. So that'd be my recommendation, to start looking at how to incorporate quantum mechanics and computers and the environment into your ecosystem and what you're doing right now. So just remember, software is hackable, being connected is vulnerable. I'll see you next Daily Cyber.